Hi everybody, today is Tuesday, May 5th. I'm actually going to go ahead and move my little arrow over here for us so that we are all on the same page about what day we're on. Tuesday, May 5th, today we see that yellow star on our calendar, so we know we have an assignment due. Yesterday we talked about all the critical vocabulary and the information that we need to do this assignment successfully, so if you need to, jump back to May 4th and take a look so that you're good to go with that information. Today what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at a few more examples so that we are on the same page about how to complete these problems using and applying the vocabulary words that we learned yesterday. So the first thing that we need to think about, there's 3 questions that we talked about yesterday that we're going to need to answer as we're thinking about solving these problems. So number 1, does the parabola open up or down? Number 2, what is the axis of symmetry? And number 3, what is the vertex? So once we have those 3 pieces of information, we're going to be able to do this sketch at the end. So we're building up to that information. We're going to go ahead and figure out all of these answers. So for number 1, does our parabola open up or down? We're going to remember that our parabola opens up if our A value is positive and opens down if our A value is negative. So here we see we need to pay very close attention to our A value. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little circle box looking device around our A. We have negative x squared. So that tells me right away that my parabola is opening down. So I'm going to go ahead and do that part of my sketch right away so that I don't forget about it. I'm going to put my little arrows at the end of my parabola because I know it's going to just kind of keep going. And now I can move on to part 2. What is my axis of symmetry? So that axis of symmetry equation that we talked about was the opposite of B over, oops, my mouse just froze, over 2A. So, oh, that does not look like a 2. Let's try that one more time. Make this a little thinner for us. There we go. Over 2A. Okay, so I know that if I'm going to plug in the information from my equation, my B value is a 10, so I have negative 10 over 2 times A is going to be 2 times that negative 1 because I have a negative 1 in front of those parentheses, which gives me a negative 2, which means my axis of symmetry is going to be a positive 5. Remember, our axis of symmetry is always an x equals because we're talking about that vertical line that goes up and down. So I have x equals 5, which means I am now ready to figure out my vertex because my vertex is just that xy coordinate. So all I need to do is plug in this value of x into my equation and go from there. So when I go ahead and I'm going to plug my value for x equals 5 into my equation, I know I have a y equals, and I have negative 5 squared plus 10 times negative 5 minus 23. So when I go ahead and I plug that into my calculator, I'm going to end up with y equals 2. So my vertex, I know, I've just found my 2 pieces. I have 5, comma 2. So now I have all the information that I need to complete my sketch. I know I'm going to pick actually a different color. I know my vertex is right up here, and my vertex is again that 5, comma 2. So I'm just going to relabel those pieces. So remember here, we're not going to need graph paper So don't panic. That's not something you need to worry about. And my axis of symmetry, I'm just going to draw that dotted line, cutting my parabola in half. That axis of symmetry is at my point where x equals 5. Same spot, same idea. Let's go ahead and just walk through one more of these so that we're feeling good about completing our homework problems. First thing that I pay attention to on this graph, number 1, is my parabola going to go up or down? This parabola is going to go up based on the fact that my A value is positive. So I'm going to go ahead and sketch that right away with my parabola smiling up. When I go ahead and plug in my information for the opposite of b over 2a, I am going to end up with, for this situation, my b is a negative 12. So the opposite of a negative 12 is actually a positive 12 over 2 times a. My a is a 3, so 2 times 3 is going to give me 6. My axis of symmetry then is at 12 divided by 6, which is 2. Don't forget when we're writing out that axis of symmetry to put in the x equals, because that tells us that this is a vertical line on our graph at x equals 2. So I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to draw that guy in there right away and label axis of symmetry that cuts my parabola in half at x equals, ooh, mouse froze, yikes, x equals 2. All right, and then the last piece that I need is my vertex. I'm going to plug my information of my 2 in. So I'm going to have 3 times 2 to the second power minus 12 times 2 plus 5. And when I plug and chug that 2 into all of these points where I have an x, I am going to end up with negative 7. So let me get back to my original color here. So my vertex is at the point, frozen, yikes, 2, negative 7. So I can go ahead and label that point on my little graph sketch that I've got going here. Vertex is that lowest point at 2, negative 7. Now, obviously, as we go through, our graphs are going to get more and more accurate, but these are the fundamental pieces that we need to understand in order to be able to move on with parabolas and enter new information. So let's go ahead and jump to our reminder for what our assignment is. Your assignment is due today, so if you have any questions, be sure to stop into Zoom. Yesterday, I encouraged you to do these fill in the blank problems at the very top of your assignment. If you got that far, that's great. If not, go ahead and start there. But you are working on 6, 7, and 8 as well. One thing I do want to note for you, number 8 looks a little bit weird. We don't really see a C value. So just remember, if we don't see a C value here, all we need to do is plug in a +0. There's nothing there, so our C is a 0. Okay. If you have questions, like I said, please feel free to stop into Zoom. Otherwise, when you are finished with this assignment, you are going to email me your answers. My email address is listed here for you. Some of you have been Google Voice texting me those responses. That's also perfectly fine. But I look forward to getting that work, and I will see you today on Zoom, and look forward to working on discriminants with you starting tomorrow.